Okay, everybody, this is Cycle Class 13, and it is titled, The Message Must Carry Weight and Depth. Okay, the message that you hear from another person, you have to know that that person knows what he's talking about. You have to be able to relate to that person that's saying, hey, look, I had a similar problem with you. I was stuck in addiction. I couldn't stop drinking and using it to save my life. But let me tell you, that's not the case anymore. And they can relate to you, they can hear you, can tell that you have been where they've been. And we can all relate to the spiritual malady, this big old hole right in the center of us that manifests itself in restlessness, irritableness, being discontented. We can relate to that. And when the message has depth and weight, well, you say, wait a minute, this guy may have been what, or woman may have been what I've been through. And they're walking in new freedom. See, the mom and the dads and the wives and the husbands and the brothers and the sisters and the psychologists, it doesn't have that effect on us because we know that they don't understand what we're going through. They don't understand addiction until you run into someone where you just know that they get it, that they were as addicted as you were, hardcore drug addict and alcoholics, and you can relate to them. That's what makes this so powerful. That's why we must work with others to give back so freely what we've been given. Okay? So we left off on doctor's opinion at the very bottom of, let's see here, XXVII, the doctor's opinion in the front of the big book. Dr. Silkworth, who wrote in his own words that there's something happening here, a spiritual movement, that people are being healed from drugs and alcohol that he hasn't seen. He ain't been able to help a certain type of person. That person that has the chronic mind of an alcoholic addict, the real McCoy, as the book says, that we want to qualify everybody so you know that you're that person, that you will not be able to stop drinking and using without spiritual help. You have to know that for yourself. And this guy, Dr. Silkworth, was able to put his name on this because he had worked with people for so long. And it's tough when certain people aren't recovering. So at the bottom of XXVII, it says, of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. So, if you're drunk and high, it's probably a good idea that you detox first. That maybe you might even need to go to a hospital and be medically detoxed because it's really tough talking to someone who's drunk and high. So we recommend that they detox first, let the fog clear a bit so you can have a decent conversation. And fresh off of a binge or a relapse is a good time to talk to the person. A lot of times they're kind of down and out and feeling like, you know what, maybe I do need to do something different. So you want to let them detox. If they need to go in somewhere, it's probably smart. And then we can approach them with our story, see if they'll relate to us. And then they start asking questions how we got sober. And then we can hit them with the working the steps and that God is the reason I'm sober. And if they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. There's a place on page 90 of the big book. You don't have to turn there. It's going to read one sentence unless you want to. It says, if he does not want to stop drinking or using, don't waste time trying to persuade him or her. If they don't want to stop, don't waste time persuading them. You got to qualify people. Do you even want to stop? You may not know how to stop, and that's fine, but do you want to stop for good and for all? If not, then we're just wasting our time with people. And we could be helping someone else that really wants to stop and not even knowing how. At first, that's why you let the fog clear. But that's super important. Do you want to stop? Are you ready? Because if you're not ready, it's not going to work. You know? Okay. Continuing on, second paragraph. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics or drug addicts is a manifestation of an allergy. Wow. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. So this is the second piece, the body piece, that there's an allergy. When you are qualified as the real McCoy, a real alcoholic, a real drug addict, not just a heavy drinker or a heavy user, the type that will not quit without spiritual help. You've been on the cycle for so long, you've proved yourself. You've had many chances to quit, whether it's health reasons, relationship reasons, in and out of jail, becoming homeless, all these things, not being around your kids, so many things. And a lot of people will be like, enough's enough, I'm going to quit. But I proved to myself that I would not quit no matter what the scenario. So I needed spiritual help. So when we're this type of person, studies have found that there's an allergic reaction to us, if you qualify as one of us. When you put something in your body reacts differently to alcohol and drugs than maybe your uncle or cousin or friend from high school. We got to understand this and look at your experience and see if it's true. When we put something in our body, it sets off the phenomenon of craving. So there's times where we can go and just drink a couple beers, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the times where you can't do it. You can't seem to control your drinking. You have no control over your drinking. So there's talking about this body piece, this allergic piece, that when we put it in our body reacts differently to it. See, that's what the doctor's opinion is talking about. And they're going to repeat this in the big book over and over again. So it gives the example of being allergic to like peanuts or shellfish, right? And we just need to go over this stuff over and over again. What happens when you put peanuts in your body? You react differently to it than your cousin or brother or whoever else, right? And throats close up and you have to be rushed to the ER. Well, the same thing with alcohol. When we know, we can consider that we have an allergic reaction, that we can't control our drinking or using. Why then do we keep going back and putting the first one in our body? So it's saying, this doctor who studied and studied and studied, and even more studies have come out over the past 80 years, that they're saying there's a genetic piece to this, that you're genetically different. That's why you have sisters and brothers that can drink wine and still function. And even though we were able to do that for a time, we stopped being able to do that. So it says that these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. Why can't we get this through our thick head? You can never have another sip of nothing ever again. You can never take a puff off a joint ever again. You can't take certain pills, even when you're hurt, ever again. You can't do it. You can't have a glass of champagne for New Year's Eve, or you can, and you're going to find out the hard way. If you're a real alcoholic addict, that sip is going to turn into a pint, it's going to turn into a line of Coke, and so on and so forth. You'll be back on this cycle, unable to control it, going on a spree, more truths and consequences. How heavy are those? Once you keep doing this, they get heavier and heavier. The Bible talks about it being 7 times worse than your emergency reliance upon things human. Wow. So we always thought we could do it ourselves. I quit Sunday. I just got to get away from so-and-so. I just have to move out of the area. If I didn't have such a boss, my boss wasn't like that. I just need a new job, all these things. But once you come to find out that self-reliance, you can't do it on your own. It said that reliance upon things human. And things human, that's us, that's other people. We got to start relying upon something that wasn't human. And the book keeps pointing us to God. You can't do it without God. Sometimes people don't like to hear that. And I don't know what to say to you. It's like, okay, it's your choice. But you have to come to the realization it's either life or death. Either God is or God isn't. So I can't rely upon things human. And then what happens? Their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. All of a sudden, we're a baffled lot. The book talks about on page 23, it says, once the malady, the spiritual malady, has a hold on somebody, they're a baffled lot. Their problems are piling up on them, become astonishingly difficult to solve. We're like useless. We turn into little kids that need help, nowhere to go. Our mind told us to keep doing actions, to be selfish, go back to playing God. And then what happens? We end up on this cycle, truth or consequence. We emerge remorseful. We make a firm resolution. We need help again. We're like little kids. Our problems become astonishingly difficult to solve. It's the spiritual malady that grabs a hold of somebody. You're a baffled lot. The book says on page 23, when this spiritual malady is not treated every day, you're restless, irritable, discontent, fear, depression, anxiety, boredom grips you. You're a baffled lot. And the book also says once this spiritual malady is treated, that you straighten out mentally and physically. The problem is the spiritual malady. So you can't do this without God. Because your malady will act up and you'll start making bad choices again. And you'll be back on the cycle. The problem is the spiritual malady. I love this stuff because it's so true. Right here it said, I can't depend upon things human. On page 103 in the big book, it says this. Can you be willing to hear this? Page 103 out of the big book. After all, our problems were of our own making. Wow. Our problems are of our own making. I'm the problem. You got to stop blaming everybody. You're the problem. I'm the problem. Your problems are from your own making. I'm getting this stuff out of the big book. Don't be mad at me. Your problems are of your own making. Okay? I received that. It's the truth. Bottles or sacks or etc. were only a symbol. We have to let go of the idea that self-sufficiency will solve our problems. We keep holding on to that old idea that somehow, some way, I'm going to pull it together on my own self-power and I'm going to figure this out on my own without God, without a daily surrender to God, staying in 3 parts. I'm going to figure it out on my own. That idea ego rebuilds itself every day. That idea is hard to shake. We can't shake it without God. That's selfish and self-centeredness right there. That's why we have to treat the selfish self-centeredness, the spiritual malady, every single day, because our ego is rebuilding itself. And we're going to go back, you know what? I see other people doing it, and I know at a time I did it. I'm going to go back to self-sufficiency. I can do this. I know I can. I feel better. I've never been this excited about things. But self-sufficiency, we have to let go of that. And once the malady has a hold, we're a baffled lot. Okay? This is all really, really good stuff right out of the big book. Okay? Let me continue on. This part, halfway down, this part is where we got our title from for today. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. What does that mean? Emotional appeals by people seldom suffices. Frothy emotional appeals. whether it's our mom or our wife or our sister or our kids. Why can't you just stop? Why can't you get it together? Come on, it's enough's enough. What is wrong with you? You know, all these frothy emotional pills, they don't work. Why? Do we need this to be it? The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In order to get someone's attention, they have to be able to relate to you and know that you've been through what they've been through, that they understand what addiction, what it is to be an alcoholic and a drug addict, that they understand what that means. And an alcoholic to an alcoholic can fully understand. And a drug addict to a drug addict can fully understand each other. Right? And it has to have depth and weight. The emotional pills and then all of our broken promises and stuff, that stuff don't even matter. It could be husbands and wives or parents or even kids can be involved. And we still stay on this cycle. And we can't do it on our own power. Okay, let's go on. It must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. Do you understand? Like, what did it say earlier? Our reliance upon human things, right? Our self-confidence. That stuff wasn't working. We have to start looking to something that's not human. We have to start looking to God, which will do it 100% of the time. And we can't do it without Him. The book's very clear on this stuff, right? So we have to have that psychic change that the book talks about from a spiritual experience, right? The Bible talks about a spiritual birth that happens, that our spiritual eyes and ears are open and we can respond to God. And we want God to be God in our lives. And every morning we remind ourselves that God is God, not me. Direct my thinking, God, for this day. Staying in the 3 parts. And I will stay off this cycle. I'm trying to stay off the cycle. I don't know about you. I can imagine what a relapse would bring onto my life. I'd lose everything. I'd have to start right back over. There's no reason to do it. Do people get chances to start over? Of course. But do some people who thought they would have another chance not get that chance? Yes, I know some. You might as well take advantage of this opportunity and know that there's no reason to relapse. Okay, let's go on. It says, halfway down the page, if any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. You think this doctor's being sentimental? You think people who have been through this stuff and they're passionate about it and understand how serious this is, how it's life and death, how it doesn't only affect your selfish self. This doesn't only affect you. You are self-centered. This affects everybody that knows you. You stay surrendered to God's will. You go through the steps and take someone through the steps. You stay in the 3 parts. You stay connected to a church. Keep getting discipled. Stand on God's word. Because this isn't about just you. That's why this doctor put this stuff down in this book. He dealt with these guys and these women that would not recover. And guess what? That's sad in itself. But what about the damage that it caused the family, the moms and the dads and the kids of these people, these drug addicts and alcoholics that are like little kids that need help? And it's okay to get help. But after a period of time, you're supposed to be helping someone else now for the rest of your life. Looking to God, staying connected. Okay? This is important. And he said, you think we're being sentimental? They've seen all this stuff as working in a secular hospital, not being able to say that God is the answer. But they saw this movement happening where people were having spiritual experiences, and the ones that weren't getting better, were coming off this alcohol and drugs because they found out that the selfishness was the problem. They had to treat their spirit with the power of God. Never again to go back on this cycle. Never relapsing. Okay, we're almost done with today's section. Let's see. Continue on. So, they're saying that's why we have accepted and encouraged this movement, right? And that's where I'm coming from right now today. I've accepted and I want to encourage this movement too, because I've recovered. I'm recovered from being a drug addict, alcoholic, but I only have a daily reprieve. I have to keep in fit spiritual condition every day and stay in the 3 parts and do the things I need to do. But I am recovered. And so I'm passionate about it. I didn't think I'd ever recover from it. I just accepted my lot in life. I could not stop. So I'm super passionate about it, and so should you. So we feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than this altruistic movement. What's an altruistic movement? It's a movement that is to show unselfishness and be selfless and have concern for others' well-being. An altruistic movement, to be concerned with others' well-being. So, on page 97, it says this, which reminded me of a portion of the Bible that we'll read here in a minute. On page 97, it says this, out of the big book. This altruistic movement is being concerned with others. That's our problem. Did you know that your refusal to be of service to another human being is a huge problem? Is contributing so much to you being spiritually sick? Because you refuse to be of service to another human being? You're the one that needs all the servicing? You're staying stuck in this hopeless place because the spiritual malady has a hold of you and you're attacked with depression and feelings of uselessness and you're irritable, restless, and discontent. You're not tapped into the power of God because you won't get off your butt and be concerned with somebody else. It's all about you. And you have to fight against that every single day. I know I do. I try to make it about me every day. Never fails. Every day. I'm constantly rebuilding. My ego's rebuilding. I'm trying to make it about Matt every day, no matter what. But I look to God and I ask Him to treat my selfish and self-centeredness with your power and love and this program of action. Being concerned with somebody else, like I'm doing right now. Do you know how much this treats my spirit? What's happening right now? Working with others. Okay. It says in page 97, helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. You want to know how to stay recovered? By helping others. Okay? It says, a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. A kindly act once in a while is not good enough. We have to be the Good Samaritan every day if need be, to be available to be there for somebody else. That's the best thing you can do to treat your spirituality, to fight against your selfish and self-centeredness, is be available. Don't get so busy with your life, because then you're going to end up in a bad spot. And the malady will come back, you'll feel empty inside, and you're going to go drink and use again. That's how serious this is. So we have a scripture out of Luke 10:27.
He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself.
The portion out of the Bible talking about the Good Samaritan, right? He's like, who is my neighbor, The one that you don't see eye to eye to, the one that you don't really want to talk to, the one you don't really want to spend time with, the one you could really help by then being able to relate to your story. It says, love your God and love others. There's another verse that sums it up in one command. I'm going to read that right now. Galatians 5:14.
For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
So it took it a step further. When the other one was love God with all your heart and love others, this one will sum it all up by loving others. And then we know we can't do that without the love of God, but that's very, very, very powerful scripture. How important it is to be available for others. How much time do we have?
4 minutes.
Nice. Okay. Good. Okay. So we have to be available. Now, page 53 in the big book says this. Page 53 out of the big book. We became alcoholics crushed by a self-imposed crisis. We are left then with this question. Either God is or he isn't. We became alcoholics and drug addicts by a self-imposed crisis. We brought it on. Our selfish and self-centered choices brought on this. Now we're in this place where it was saying earlier in our readings that, self-sufficiency isn't going to help us. It's a self-imposed crisis. Now we've come to this place where reliance upon human things, we've lost our self-confidence in being able to pull ourselves out of things. We literally can't do it without God's help. So this is a blessing a lot of times because people need to be put in that situation. What does it say where alcohol is a great, it helps you come to this place. Alcohol and drugs help you come to this place of surrender. There's a line in the big book. It says something like it's great help in that area to bring you to this place of surrender, right? So we're blessed because we were created to have a relationship with God. But if we're still self-sufficient and doing things on our own, we don't really have time for God now, do we? But now we're in this position to really look to God and ask him for his help. So if reliance upon human things are no longer helping, then either God is or he isn't. Okay? I'm going to end today reading from page 62 out of the big book, touching more on self. And that selfishness is the problem, okay? The spiritual malady that we need to be treated every single day. Before I read that, I wanted to mention a line out of the third step prayer on page 63 where it says, this third step prayer is like, Lord, relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. We need to be relieved through the power of God from the bondage of self. We're the problem. Our thinking is so self-centered and based, and we're still chasing these things that we've done over and over and over again, and they keep turning into broken promises. So we just need to say, Lord, release me from the bondage of self, and I need to do that every single morning and throughout the day. Thy will be done. Not my will, thy will. And to do God's will is surrendering to his will and being focused on others and not myself. Focusing on myself is what keeps causing all of my problems in life. Okay? So we'll end on page 22. It says, top of page 62. On the top of page 62 it says, whatever our protestations, whatever our protests, our excuses, our reasoning, right? Whatever we can come up with, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity. No matter what we're protesting and hollering about and bringing up, aren't we just concerned about ourselves? Doesn't everything just go right back to that? That we can say, no, I'm concerned for so-and-so and this, or I just have a lot of fear. Yeah, you have fear because of how you're going to be affected. It's always traced back to self. You don't have to agree with me. You can think whatever you want. But I'm just telling you, it always ties back to self. Even like being worried about somebody else getting hurt. And really it's because if they get hurt, it's going to make us feel a certain way. We are so self-centered to our core. It's just crazy. And so our self has brought it on. It says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Okay? Selfish and self-centeredness. It says, driven, here's what it's driven by. 100 forms of fear. There's that fear. Self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. Is there a common word involved in all that? Do you guys hear the same word being repeated? Self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, self. It's just we got to hit it home. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the problem. You think your problem is something else or somebody else. No, your problem is you. My problem is me. And I don't always like that. I'm not always honest with myself about that because I like to blame my wife and other people. So here we go. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Isn't that so true? We're so stuck on what so-and-so did to us. But if we'll take the time to work a four-step and get honest with ourselves, we'll see our part in it and say, oh yeah, I did mess around with his girlfriend in the 8th grade. No wonder he did that to me in the 10th grade. Or whatever. They retaliated on you. When people did stuff to you and you hold on to a grudge, be honest with yourself. Some things, if it's something that happened as a kid and some weird stuff that's just that you didn't play a part in, the part you play is holding on to it for 30, 40, 50 years. But most things, you did something first. You brought it on. And I had to really get honest with myself. I'm so mad at so many people, and I'm thinking back like, wow, what a self-centered prick I was all those years. And how I just tried to use people and expect so much out of people. And then they ended up turning on me and burning me, and I couldn't believe it. How dare you? You're not trustworthy or anything. And I was using them before they did that to me. I was using and abusing them. And then I'm all mad because they retaliated. I had stepped on their toes first. You see? We got to be honest with ourselves. Okay. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation. Okay? But we invariably find that at some point in the past, we have made decisions based on self. Okay? Sometime in the past, you have made decisions based on self, which what? Which later placed us in a position to get hurt. You just gotta be honest with yourself, dude. And dudettes. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. Okay, can you be honest with yourself that your troubles are basically of your own making? You did it. It's because of you. Okay, watch this. They arise out of ourselves. Ooh. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Here we go. Above everything, are you ready for this? Above everything, we alcoholics and addicts must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. So above everything else, we must get rid of this selfish and self-centeredness. How do we do that? Here we go. God makes that possible. We must, or God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. How desperately do we need God? We can't even address the malady without God's help. We can't get rid of this selfish and self-centeredness without his help. It's constantly rebuilding itself. And a lot of the churches in America are preaching self and lifting up self. Crazy. So you're encouraging the problem. Selfish and self-centeredness is the problem. God didn't create us to be selfish and self-centered. Jesus modeled that. He doesn't expect us to pull this off on our own. That's where this cross and the spiritual birth comes. The spiritual experience that you can have. And God comes and dwells in you and helps you be the person, the people that he wants us to be. So, that's it for today. See you next week.